Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad or Brad Laurie, and today I'm talking to the CEO of Red Fox Labs. It's something that a lot of people are talking about right now. And as I said, Benny is the CEO. Benny, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's good to talk to a fellow Aussie.
And mate, I've been a fan of yours all the way back when you started in years ago when you were Bitcoin Benny. And I remember we reached out and said g'day as Aussies. Now you've come a long way, mate, since then. You've built out Komodo. You've really done a lot there. And now you're moving one step forward and building something new. And a lot of attention has been garnered because of the things happening right now with Red Fox Labs. But let's find out exactly what all this is about, cutting all the bullshit out as Aussies. You claim that it's the Linux essentially of blockchain for Komodo, and then you liken Red Hat to this new innovation with Red Fox Labs. Let's get stuck into unpacking Red Fox Labs, likening that with using that analogy.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at Komodo's tech, it's open source, it's decentralized, it's consensus driven. If we're talking to Fortune 500s now, recently over the last 6 months to a year, these big companies are saying we need to get into blockchain because our competitors are getting into blockchain. They're all doing it. So can you come across and talk to us now? Who can sign NDAs? Who can do business deals with us? And we're saying, well, Komodo is decentralized and it's not really structured that way. It's open source and it's open to public contribution. So we kind of got to that point where we thought to ourselves, we either can build stuff out that is actually more commercial grade and that's actually set up as and incorporated, or what we can do instead of building products that go on to the end of the technology, much the same as a lot of other projects have started up to do, we could actually build full-scale companies out, and we can actually provide enterprise-grade support and solutions to these big Fortune 500s, and we can actually give them subscription-based support, and we can build a whole ecosystem where we're not only building out other companies on the Komodo tech, but we're actually also building out the ability to be able to have licensed contractors that we're able to actually charge for subscription-based support, as I say, for bug fixes, for have licensed technicians go out and set up blockchain solutions for large-scale businesses. It's very, very hard for an organization like a Komodo or even a Red Fox Labs to say we've got a presence in India, Pakistan, Japan. What happens if you go through another bear market in crypto winter? What we've learned is that you have to remain agile, you have to remain light. So if you've got these independent contractors who are going out and sourcing their own work, and then you're getting a commission for the work that they actually do for you, this is a much more sustainable model. So much the same way as Red Hat was the catalyst for Linux, we can now take this open source decentralized technology to commercial grade businesses and not have to disrupt what is essentially a very cool ecosystem, and it's very, Komodo is very lax, and it allows anyone to come in and great ideas, and they're like nutty professors in the kitchen cooking up all this stuff. Right. So we can do it'll be there on Tuesday, it'll be guaranteed, it'll be backed, it'll be audited, so it's a very, very, very different type of approach.
Right. Well, let's explore that with the terminology that you well know in terms of incubation, acceleration, and also back mapping, because that's what you're saying. You're saying you're back mapping from a system that you're going to build and take that to enterprise. And also copycat, in a sense. Use the knowledge that's there, understand the frameworks that exist and that are successful, and then back map that into the system. Now let's talk about what that is in terms of accelerators and incubators. What does it mean to be that for Red Fox Labs?
Yeah, sure. So what we do is, for those who are familiar with Rocket Internet, we look at companies that have been very successful, predominantly from China, but also from the US. The reason we choose China is because they've been much more efficient and agile, and they've, as you've seen, they've taken a lot of market share off a lot of these US corporations. What we do is we say, what is lacking in Southeast Asia where we're based? So what doesn't really exist? Where's there a hole in the market? We look for a unicorn type company that's easily replicatable in a high growth sector. So we only stick to the internet economy. So e-commerce, e-travel, e-media, and ride hailing with logistics and food delivery. So what we do is we look for a model that isn't really in huge presence here, but is in huge demand. We make no bones about it. We replicate that. We take that model, we copy it, What we then do is we say, right, let's put a team of experts in that field at the helm. Let's give them a percentage of equity, and let's let them run with that. Now, the differentiator, so why wouldn't that company just come in and block us out and take our market share, and they're bigger, better, stronger than us?
Right.
We look at how blockchain can unlock that internet economy for people, how we can gain a competitive advantage. And as you said, going back to your acceleration and incubation, we work with the teams. So we go 100 days go to market for the product, 100 more days of hand holding, and then we let them go. But what we do is we retain a huge equity share in that business, and we mentor and coach them. We give them opportunities to make connections with people who can help accelerate their businesses. So we're very much incubating, accelerating, but we're also we know what blockchain tech can do. So when we're talking to these Fortune 500s, they go, I don't know, our competitors use it, so what can you do for us? So we can build companies and say it can do or it can't do.
Right, and I think you raise a good point there, Benny, because essentially with your business experience, you're capitalizing on the lack of knowledge that these traditional sectors have on blockchain. So you're transforming, you're literally that next generation incubation model that's a hub, a bespoke hub model for those key verticals you mentioned, at least to start with, where you're going to literally transition these companies by that copycat model by doing what works, but doing it in a blockchain-centric way. Is that right?
Yes. Yep, exactly right. 100%.
Okay. So given that, let's talk a little bit more about essentially the exclusivity with Komodo. What's the relationship there? Because that's really important for making sense in terms of tokenization, which we'll discuss later, and also gives a bedrock platform for it, the Red Fox model to work.
Yep. So I've got two hats there. So I've got the one hat, the Komodo hat, that says, I hope there's a yellow fox, a blue fox, a red fox, and there's lots of these companies that come across, because that's good for the Komodo ecosystem, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to accelerate blockchain adoption. But how the red fox system would work is every Komodo chain is an independent blockchain, so it's its own platform. So what we'd essentially be able to do is, for want of a better term, we'd be able to build side chains. So there'll be companies that we would build that won't need their own token. And we're not just going to create, and pardon my French, but we're not going to just create shitcoins for the sake of creating shitcoins. And some of these businesses won't actually need tokens. So what we can say is, okay, let's let the people that are dealing with the companies that we build interact with fiat and in a normal, everyday way. And what will happen behind the scenes is whatever data collection or verification or any type of transaction that's happening on the blockchain, the Red Fox token would actually be that ecosystem token.
Right. So let's clarify though, with that Linux analogy, that Komodo itself provides that open source protocol. So you're still going to utilize the Komodo protocol in your whole ecosystem. Okay.
Only Komodo, and it's kind of upstream as well. So Komodo would produce stuff that we would use, but we would also produce stuff that we would push back into the Komodo ecosystem. But more importantly, what we'd also do to give commercial businesses that peace of mind is we'd be able to audit the code that's coming through Komodo and say, this one's been bug tested, approved, proper code audited, we can release it into the Red Fox ecosystem. So there'll be certain pushes or updates or bug fixes or patches or whatever that we'd say, no, this one doesn't get through our system. We do not introduce this because we cannot support it or back it up or whatever.
Right, makes a lot of sense. So essentially the quality of Komodo is imperative to the Red Fox model.
100%. And we would also be providing them, because don't forget, Komodo being a decentralized open source structure, they don't have, if you've got 500 contributors, how do you audit all of the stuff that's coming in? And you've got to make sure that everything that comes in is squeaky clean, that there's no malware, that it's all been protected. So a company like Red Fox can actually really help to make sure that everything that goes out is audited before it goes out.
Right, it makes a lot of sense. And it'll be interesting to watch as these work in sync together, because clearly the value of Komodo is going to be positively affected by Red Fox as these both evolve. And that's clearly your mission. That's why you're in Vietnam. And we'll talk about why you're there later. But you've clarified acceleration, and appreciate that. What about adoption? I want to talk about that in the context of situation, geography, the propensity for adoption, because you're in that Southeast Asian belt. How imperative is it to be there as opposed to, you know, we're both Aussies, why not just be in Australia as Nuggets was suggesting? Clearly, you've really thought about this, Benny.
Yeah, well, I'm an Aussie and I'm living in a country where I don't speak the language, and people say to me all the time, I think the number one question we get asked is, how are you going to survive if you don't have contacts? Now, we're expatriates here for a long time. I've been a CEO in 4 different countries in the region. We've got an extensive contact network. But as far as the adoption is concerned, let's be honest, the blockchain side of things, the governments in some of these countries are completely behind. They endorse, they're 100% for. The cryptocurrency side of things, some of them are a bit on. They're still working out regulations. So we wanted to take that out of the equation. We didn't want to say, let's push the government to accept what we're doing. Let's make these governments accept that crypto's here and blockchain's here, and they just have to put up with it. What we're doing is we're building out business models that the people that are using the end product don't know that they're using blockchain. So it's not so much that we're trying to gain mass adoption through people saying, all right, we have to use it. We're gaining mass adoption through people not knowing they're going to use it by using a better, faster, cheaper, more secure, whatever it is, version of what they're already used to.
Right.
So they're using the blockchain is effectively the engine that happens behind the scenes that they're not familiar with. What we're used to because of this whole 2017 bull run leading into 2018 is you have to have a wallet, you have to have a coin, you have to have a certain number, you have to have bought it in the ICO, you have to have got a discount, you have to have got. But that is not what blockchain is really all about. It should be about technology. So we're saying, forget that. People don't have to learn how to use a wallet. They don't have to learn what a cryptocurrency is. They just go and buy whatever it is that they buy, and now it's easy for them.
And essentially too, I mean, you're coming from that enterprise sector too. Your whole team is all about trying to get enterprises to integrate and utilize blockchain to be more productive. And that means quite often that they simply don't need to have a tokenized economy themselves. You're going to build this whole ecosystem from the ground up so that they can just simply capitalize. And you're going to capitalize on their capitalization because you're going to have a stake. And that makes sense. Now, with the unicorns you mentioned, I noticed in some other interviews with Nuggets that you referred to some of them as billion-dollar potential unicorns. Now, have you gone out and already done some groundwork in Asia? Talk us through that a little bit. So, because I noticed you've got a lot of partners as well.
Yep, we've got a 9-step funnel system, which is effectively what people are investing in, to be honest.
Right.
So we've got a 9-step process, and we basically say it has to be in one of the fastest growing sectors. It has to have, we have to be 3rd to 5th to market. We have to either, or there's 2 main players that control 80% of the market share that we can steal from. It has to be, blockchain has to benefit it. We have to be able to patent it, trademark it, lock it down in some way, shape or form, what it is that we're actually doing. Now, people say that's weird because you're copying what someone else is doing. We are, but we're actually introducing that blockchain element. We're making it different. We're changing the process. If we can't protect what it is that we bring out, then people are just going to come in and overrun us. So we've got a very strict process. And what we've done is we've put a lot of different companies through the model, and they've failed. And the ones that have come out, we're very, very sure of. But the element that we wanted to bring in, and we've been in the commercial world for long enough to know that if you do something based on emotion, you're going to fail. So what we do is we put things through that are not subjective, they're extremely objective. But if we have 3 or 4 things come out of the bottom of the model, and one of them we're kind of a bit more excited about, of course we'll choose that. But what we need to do is we need to flip the model. And that's where venture builders and startup studios have been very successful. They've been able to say, instead of it being a 10% success rate for startups, they've been able to go to a 90% success rate because they've got good process. So we've done a lot of due diligence, and we've put a lot of companies through, and a lot that we thought would make it through failed. And a lot that we thought would fail made it through. And it's not until you dig deep, because we're searching in English.
Right.
You've got to search in Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese, all these different languages. And you think to yourself, okay, so how many of these companies are there? And we need to make sure that we're pretty much one of the first, but not too early that we have to go through dealing with the governments and legislation and bypassing and writing new laws. We want people to have got in, stuffed it up, enough that they've worked out how it works reasonably well, and then we come in and coattail that.
And it makes a lot of sense that you've spent the months doing this, because obviously you don't want to jump in now and just trial these things and work out later that they don't work, especially if you're going to raise. So obviously that due diligence is key. But I want to talk to you a bit more about this token, and we'll elaborate later. But in this context, what is interesting is you're not actually doing an untokenized economy per se, because Red Fox is still driven by your token. So when these companies come in, they're still going to interact with the Red Fox system and token that drives the whole economy. So they're not going to just simply operate without one.
No, and people say to me, you know, how are you going to get those new companies to commit to using this ecosystem? And what I keep saying is it's our ecosystem. We're building the companies. So we have the final say in that. And what we're effectively doing is, for example, if we built the next Twitch, for example, we would say, who's had experience in Twitch? Who can we bring from overseas back into the region? Who are the localized talents? Who could possibly run that? And they would say, oh, I can do it. And we'd say, okay, you've been a 2IC or a C level, and here's a chance to run your own business. But those people will definitely run on our ecosystem. There is the possibility that in some cases they say we absolutely have to have our own token and our own coin. So then it's a decision that we have to sit down and say, can't you use ours? Or, great, let's give you your own ecosystem and your own coin. Depends on.
Doing too much of that's going to obviously water down the effects of your whole ecosystem. So clearly you don't want to do a great deal of those. But obviously the core part is that the engine is that token that allows the seamless interaction of settlement, of incentivization, right through everything. So the imperative is going to be almost like contractor to subcontractor, making sure that you've got these strong contracts that they understand that they really essentially must be using that core coin.
Yeah, but if someone like a SoftBank came along and said, hey, we want to buy this company that you've built, and we want to make sure that they go out of your ecosystem or whatever, and we're going to pay X money to buy this company out. We want it to go to IPO, we want it to go to trade sale or STO or whatever it is. The ultimate goal for us is to have a clear exit strategy before we enter any company. There's no point entering any type of build out unless you've got an exit strategy. So the part that we look to do is to bring in and to utilize and to grow the value of those companies to eventually one day sell. If they look like they're going to be absolute monsters, then obviously you want to retain a little bit of a stake or a share in those companies. But it's to build up a portfolio under our own. But the ultimate goal, and what would be lovely, but it's not imperative, is if we had some sort of a super DApp. If we had a super DApp in this Asian region, I don't think it's any secret. It's obvious that we're trying to do that.
And it's great that you want to build out your own unicorns, because essentially that's what you're trying to do, is you want to use old models and build those blockchain unicorns to really capitalize and create revenue. Now, in that context, let's talk about these terms: consultancy, integration work, customization. These are streams of and ways you can make money. So Benny, talk us through this and how this affects A, the utility token, and B, your whole ecosystem for revenue.
So being honest, I can say to you, you know, we're going to do that tomorrow. This thing, that's going to take a long time to build out, and we know that, because it's we have to go through the whole process of certifying contractors. We have to go through the whole process of making sure that there's good materials and content for these people coming on who may be in a different country, in different languages, in a different part of the world. And we've got to uphold our brand integrity and make sure that these people that are working within our platform and our Red Fox Labs ecosystem are upholding our good name. So this is going to take time. But the great part about this is that if they're in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, China, the good thing is that the Red Fox coin is a great way to be able to have this borderless payment system currency, and it gives that a huge amount of utility. And it also, in the very boring thing that no one likes to hear about, it could entitle people to discounts on services and all the rest of it as well. But if you think about the magnitude of having people and representatives in every country going out and installing blockchain solutions into businesses, whether they be big or small, and then being paid and rewarded for their work, and then being paid through faucets and RPC calls and being distributed through through our network, through our coins, it's kind of exciting to think that we don't have to worry about the things that Grab and Uber do, where you've got a central bucket of funds and you have to send that across to 15 different countries and deal with wallets and local providers and all the rest of it. It's kind of a nice thought, and we'll have to deal with some problems with that, but they're nice problems to have.
Sure. Now, getting back again to that consultancy, give us some idea of revenue, though. I mean, have you worked out your pricing lists, or is there some sort of mechanism in place where you can present these to the parties that you may be working with, so they have an idea of how you can bring those dollars in to be sustainable?
Yeah, so we've done a JV with a company that's based in Dubai, and in the MENA region, so Middle East, North Africa, there's a lot of they have mandates. So the government has actually said we need to have blockchain in government departments by the year X. So they've actually planned this out. So we're actually going to Dubai to talk to them next week. Now, those consultants are already getting lots of normal consultancy work, but now they're getting asked to do the blockchain side, and they can't close those deals because they don't have the blockchain experience. So what now happens is we've effectively got scouts out there looking for work for themselves, and we're saying you can use us and you can bring us in for the blockchain side, and then we put a premium of about 20% on top of that. So we can actually make we can help them win work, do a relatively small amount of work, and actually take a commission and some earnings out of that. But if you're wondering what sort of scale we're talking about, in the first couple of years, it might only be a couple of $100,000 to anywhere up to $1 million, but it depends on the size of the contracts. We've already got some big appointments in Dubai next week, so I think we could start getting some pretty big contracts.
Right, and obviously that's just one example from one country, and really you're in a region with several countries. But obviously there's also a subscription model built in as well, as I understand too. So talk us through that, how that would work.
Yeah, so basically, say for example, a company says we want to reduce capex, obviously for these big businesses, and we want to be able to say, look, we can come in, help you with blockchain integration, we can help you reduce costs, we can help also do that subscription-based support model, which means that you carry less staff costings, less infrastructure costings. So we want to be able to make this a much more cost-effective situation for the people in these businesses. And what we would do is have a cost per licensed user with bolt-ons, so that we're actually charging those people per year and per license to be able to use the blockchain solution in their business. And that way we can actually charge money to these businesses. Now, like I say, this is not something that depends on us being there. It can be done through every country in the world effectively if you've got a good network and a good training mechanism and a good school, much the same as Red Hat. So if anyone's not familiar how that would sort of scale out, having a look at the Red Hat model would give you a clear understanding. And
that's been very successful as well, globally. Right.
So let's be honest, we're not trying to invent anything that's new.
No.
We're taking concepts that already exist and we're learning from the bear market. We're remaining agile, small team. We use all contractors, and we don't have we won't have massive teams of paid employees. These people will be independent contractors that go and fish for their own work. And if they get their own work, then we take a percentage of whatever they win under the guise of representing Red Fox.
Got it. Right. Okay. So what about with regard to the term internet economy? You mentioned those key verticals, but talk us through why. That's what I wanted to understand better.
Yep.
What made you choose those verticals? Was it because you had done the due diligence and worked out they were the most profitable or the most relevant? What was the exact reason? And so far, give us some examples that you will be embedding into the ecosystem from those verticals.
Yeah, so Google Temasek last year brought out a Southeast Asian report. The part that talked about the internet economy said that it was a $72 billion industry in 2018. By 2025, it'll be a $240 billion industry, so it's a massive growth potential. Less than 43% of people in Southeast Asia are actually interacting with the internet economy. 25% in Vietnam and 21% in Philippines, so they're the two lowest of the region. So there's a huge opportunity for us to take a little piece of that pie, and we only have to take a little piece for it to be significant. But with blockchain, we might be able to unlock some of that underserved market. So we were very, very careful on looking for the fastest growing sectors and industries, and we were looking for the ones that were the most underserved. So putting to your example, people keep asking us, what are you going to build first? Really depends on the raise. but the most common and logical models for us to build would be on-demand English. There's a company called VIP Kid in China, which is worth $3 billion and no one's ever heard of it.
Right.
You get on your mobile phone and you press, I want a lesson now, and you've got someone in America or England teaching these kids one-on-one English lessons. As I say, $3 billion business.
I would use that. I've got
a lot of people would.
I've got a degree in teaching and in linguistics, so I would use that for myself.
Well, the biggest challenge in this region of the world is if you bring teachers over from England, you've got bricks and mortar, you've got huge capex, and they're not going to go and live in a province where there's hardly any electricity, any water. But the mobile coverage in these countries is amazing. So you can either download them, you can do them live streaming, you can have paid uploaded content. The good thing about it is now you can reach and penetrate the 97% of the market that isn't being tapped, because everything's concentrated in 3% of the richest people in the richest cities of these countries.
Right, and you're also reducing costs for the parties involved because of this
absolutely
system with the peer-to-peer nature of blockchain. So that's
these people can log on their lounge suite in America and literally go, I'll do some work now.
And Benny, they won't know that they're utilising blockchain.
No, and that's the beautiful part about it. And we can distribute money and salaries and wages to people very easily. So that's one. Esports and gaming is massive in this area, and esports is now an official game in the Asian Games in 2022.
Okay.
And there's no real proper aggregators here that combine, like Ping An in China, which is the top 2 or 3 most profitable businesses in China, that aggregate finance and also insurance together. And as you've got this burgeoning up-and-coming middle-class structure, and one of the fastest growing per capita millionaire economies in the world, they're starting to have this massive thirst for luxury goods, insurance, loans. There's no real aggregators and portals. There's only 1 or 2 major ones in the whole in Vietnam and in this region. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to go in. It's almost like you're licking your fingers and you're thinking, which one do we do first?
Right, and it's obvious that it's happening in India, it's soon happening in China, it's happening in Indonesia, it's happening in Vietnam, certainly. So you're really positioned well, even the Philippines. So there's millions upon millions of people who are going to essentially be benefactors of the blockchain, but also capitalize on some of the things that are afforded. And you, as a business, are going one step up, almost preparing for this, burgeoning economy by being there first as a first market mover. Now, IEOs, Benny, they are something that is a buzzword in the very recent past. Controversial at the very least, but they certainly are working for the point that they were trying to do, which was create hype, create interest, and certainly excite the speculator. So what is your view on this, and what's happening for Red Fox specifically in this context? I notice it's already been announced. So tell us what the deal is.
We were very lucky because of the model and what we're building, and because we've got experience in the commercial side. We were lucky because we got a lot of interest, and we had a couple of the top 2 or 3 exchanges approach us and ask us, which was a tremendous surprise for us because we were going down the equity route. We weren't even thinking really about doing the IEO route. And then we were kind of like shocked, and we thought, this is a great attention that we're getting. But we were absolutely horrified with how much these exchanges are actually charging people to run IEOs. And we thought, this is just like criminal. Like, I think a lot of these projects are raising a lot more money than they need to raise purely to cover the cost of the fees. And
and most likely market making as well. I mean, some of the costs they charge are immense.
I won't get too far into it just now because, but I will say, we chose someone who sort of the CEO from Coinbenny flew over to Vietnam to see us, came to our office, said that it looked like a bit of a Google in the early days.
Right.
And was very impressed because we've got a hackathon room, we've got a stage and a presentation hall, we've got a co-working space, we've got a chill out room where I'm in now. It's a really good facility, 5-story building. And he came over and said, this is exciting, we want to be a part. But people have said, why are you doing an IEO? You're selling just such a small amount of tokens, and it's speculative, and it's just another way to fancy wrap an ICO. But think about this logically. This is the difference. Back in the old days, you'd raise $20 million in an ICO for 70% of your tokens, for example, right? If you screwed that, you fluffed it, or whatever, that's it. The good thing about this is you might only be raising 5-6 million, and you might only be selling 10% of your tokens. But the thing is, if you don't take that money and build something out and do something with it, the tokens, when they get released from the next round, they're not going to be worth anything.
Exactly.
So you've got this incentive to keep pushing. Now, people say to me, hang on, that's still dressed up an ICO, but if you think about the real markets and the capital markets, you've got seed rounds and you've got Series A, Series B,
and it works exactly the same way. You're accountable, right?
Same way. So the tokens, when they get released, when our first lot of tokens get released for a foundation or something, that's like Series A. If we haven't delivered what we said we're going to deliver, people are going to say this project, these people are bums. I'm not going to.
Well, you know, to counter that though, I mean, obviously you've seen the pump and dump cycles of some of these IEOs as well. So obviously you've tried to think about investors that are going to protect the integrity of your token.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is that we're also going for the equity side of the raises as well. And we've been talking to some, I won't name them here, but we've been talking to some of the very, very big VCs.
Right.
They've basically given us a task, and that is to go away and build out our first couple of projects on our own, raise the seed through our own means, and then go back to them and they'll put jetpacks on us and take us to that next level. So we've got a huge, huge challenge. But if we do anything to damage integrity, screws us, screws anybody we build on, screws anybody that we deal with. And these big investors are going to turn around and say, what are you doing? So we know we've got our eye on the prize. We don't plan on being small. We're starting small, and we're doing that to prove the concept. But we've got everything riding on this, our professional reputations, we've got everything we've ever worked for in our lives. So we don't take this lightly.
Right, and you certainly do. And it was interesting as well, known as Benny and going with Coin Benny. I thought, you know, quite an interesting concept. But underneath that, there was some really interesting reasons, and I've heard you mention before. One of them is having a smaller raise, having smaller fees, and also having a strong reputation. Now, let's get real. Coin Beanie has had some things come up in the past. Are they cleaning up their act? Did you do your due diligence to choose this on the right way? So it wasn't just affordable for you, but it was also built in a better reputation for them.
Yeah, like I want to be honest always, so I'm just going to say it how it is. I was actually like quite shocked at all of the exchanges that I looked into. I thought that all of their reputations were quite kind of
concerning.
They are, to be honest with you. I mean, in the commercial world, you wouldn't get away with any of this stuff. So we had to basically, to be honest, it was more like if we can get 3 out of 5, if we can get 3 ticks out of 5, then we go with whatever we can. So we wanted to go with the lowest fees, as we said. We wanted to also go with something that could potentially provide better long-term. We didn't want to go out with a $40 million raise and then have the coin just go. We're better off to go for a smaller fees and have a chance for it to do something later. But as far as like reputation is concerned, yeah, I mean, there's been lots of reports on fake volumes and you know what? We literally had, I think, 12 offers from 12 different exchanges, and we literally got to the point, to be honest, where we sat there and said, "Jesus, they're all as bad as each other." I mean, I'm being honest now, and I shouldn't be saying this because
I appreciate it But I appreciate your honesty though, Benny, because at the end of the day, we need to hear it, but we also need to know they're cleaning their act up. And that's the thing I wanted to check with you is that, you know, obviously you've gone and done your DD on this exchange to make sure they've got the potential to really showcase that they can be transparent, be trustable.
I think, to be honest, they've just brought out like perpetual contracts, and they've been trying to sort of provide a few extra avenues, and the fact that they came out and actually saw us and they spent time with us and sat with us, and they, well, you know, we brought that up, and Komodo did a technological partnership with them, and we raised all these concerns with them at the time, and they basically said, look, we're improving, we're learning as we go. We're not perfect.
They have to. I mean, to keep up, they're going to have to, because the whole space is getting smarter and demanding more transparency. And you'd know that because there's greater regulation push as well. So right now, the iron fist is right there, and they need to simply be as good as the projects that are onboarding with them. Now,
and I'm going to be honest. If you said, is there any other exchanges that you would rather go with? I would say, to be 100% honest, there are other exchanges that I think are probably a little bit more reputable or haven't had that checkered past. But the fact is, because of that more clean past, I refuse to pay 5 times as much to list the coin, and I refuse to pay 5 times as much. That means that people that are buying into this project have to pay more to get less, just so that I can use that. I refuse to do that. It's about a bit of balance, and unfortunately, whichever way I go, I'm not going to get it right. So it's a matter of finding which ticks the most boxes that are the most reasonable.
Sure. So affordability is a factor, but also, it begs the question, if they are indeed entirely clean, if they're capitalizing and charging exorbitant amounts when they simply don't need to. It's like doing a huge raise as an ICO back in the day. So to use that analogy, it's just simply greedy in many instances for these big exchanges. So, Benny, let's talk about the numbers, though. In terms of your raise, let's clarify this for the audience. Now, is there going to be some sort of equity raise whereby it's a genuine equity, or is this a straight token raise as well? Like, I want to clarify this for everybody.
Yeah, sure. So the token itself is just a token raise. So it's a utility token raise.
Yep.
The actual, we have always been going down the path of, and we will continue to go down the path of traditional equity as well, where we have big VC partners that will build that out. But the thing is, because we're building on the blockchain and because we're using that token, those big VCs investing in the equity means that what happens is that the more we have of those types of partnerships coming in, and the more that they invest in the business, the bigger we build things out, and the more likely it is. So they're effectively our backbone. But make no bones about it, the token that we're putting out, or the coin that we're putting out, is not a security, and it's not a share dividends.
That's what I wanted to clarify from you. So let's talk about the numbers for the utility token raise specifically. What are they, Benny, for these people who are going to be able to access this on the IEO?
Yeah, so in the seed round, that was a very, very small percentage. It was $350,000 raise at 3.5 cents. The private round, which is due to start tomorrow, is 4 cents. And then the public round is 5 cents. And what we didn't want to do is we wanted to make that there wasn't a huge disparity between the two, because what we've seen is people say, let's dump on the retail investors, and those poor schmucks will pay 5 cents each. And then what happens is we come into the market, and then people are dumping them for below. And I think the one thing about the IEOs, if you look at the last one for Binance, was called what was it, Seller or something?
Yes, you saw a significant dump.
Yeah, well, they were 0.0067 in the public, and then they're trading at 2.4 cents or something like that. So they have done a 4x, but the thing was no one could buy in. There was 30,000 people trying to buy in, and well, I won't even talk about that because I'll incriminate myself. But I would assume that no more than a very small handful got in.
I would also assume that too. So that's the other thing I wanted to ask you is this going to be an IEO that's going to be easier for people to access this opportunity? Because, I heard one today that was 1 second. That might be true, but I mean, it's getting so difficult for the average person to participate in these IEOs.
I want to be honest. I mean, the private round's starting tomorrow, and if I be 100% honest with you, the noises that we're hearing behind the scenes, and you've probably heard them yourself, and I think everybody has, I think there's like 6 or 7 or more big groups that will come in and just swallow the private round in the first 5 minutes of it opening.
Yeah.
So what will that mean for the public round? I honestly believe that the exchange that we're using has nowhere near as many users as some of the other bigger exchanges. So I think there is an opportunity for people to actually buy in at that public round.
Right.
But it depends what happens with the VCs over the next week or two. So I'll be transparent and I'll keep people up to date.
Yeah.
But I'll be 100% honest, and I'll be. I mean, if I've got to assume that it's my mum or my.
Exactly. You really do. For the respect of the retailer. But in terms of lockups as well, Benny, is there a means in which these pre-sale investors or these private sale investors can't go and simply dump? I mean, are there certain lockups in place?
Yeah, so we put in, we said 50% of the seed and private should be locked. So 50% out and 50% a month later. Now, the reason people say, well, hang on, it used to be that you'd get them a year or 2 years.
Yeah.
With the IEOs, it's a very, very small percentage. But I can tell you, being, again, transparent, is that people put pressure on you to put as long as they say that there hasn't been discounts given or there's not a huge disparity between the prices, there's a lot of pressure on us to make sure that there is no locks, so that the fact that there's enough liquidity, because otherwise people can't sell. So
right, you raise a really good point.
We're going through that now. We're going through that now.
Yeah, and mate, I normally would never. I'd press you so hard for this, and I'd really push if you didn't have a limited, like if the disparity was great and extensive, then I would really, contest what you're saying. But because it's not, I mean, it seems like liquidity is paramount here, and that seems absolutely palatable. Because if it wasn't, and you had huge differences, then again, it would reinforce a huge injustice. And we have seen that in the ICO era, where they definitely did have huge disparity in price, and they had a huge unlock, which was ridiculous. Totally unjust system.
I think the bigger danger here is that you've got your market maker side of things, and obviously we don't touch that type of stuff. But I think the market maker side for IEOs is worse, because what happens is people would sort of say, we'll buy the tokens for 4 cents or 5 cents each or whatever. And then there's expectations that market makers can lift that up to 12, 15, 20, whatever it is. And regardless of which, it's not the people that have bought in the private seed and the public raise. You don't have to worry about the disparity there. It's about the people that buy in at 20 cents. That there's nothing to support that or hold that up.
And they're often the people who are least informed and desperate to access it, and they can only access it at the very tail end of the whole. So they get.
My advice, and what I'm saying to your viewers is, if you decide to buy into this project, buy into it because you like the project and you think that the project's going to do something longer term, and you like what we're actually doing. Don't buy it for I know this is a stupid thing to say because people aren't going to listen.
Well, and also remember, it's a utility token, so it's not an investment from the outset. It's about if you believe in the use of this, and that this whole system can build out for its purpose, that's why you invest in what I deem as a secure utility, because it has an implication of potential of growth if the utility actually works.
Yeah, so again, but I know we're not talking financial advice and all the rest of it, and I'll probably get myself into trouble for actually just saying it how it is. But to be honest, I'd rather actually know that we've done the right thing than to try and trick people into doing something.
I'm sure they'd appreciate that, Benny. I'm really sure. So, mate, to do all this right, you need a damn good team. Now, when we look at your website, I have to be honest, it doesn't show all of your team. It shows the core members, and it shows a lot of advisors. I want to clarify that, because the experience of those three is predominantly enterprise business. And you've always referred to a large dev team. So where are they and who are they?
Okay, so we're kind of lucky because, as you probably saw, we've got JL777, which is the co-founder of Komodo, and he's the founder of Komodo and the core dev. He's effectively built out all of the tech that we're going to be using, and we've got the ability to be able to utilize a lot of the team and community from that side. So the thing is that actually where we're going to actually need the help, or where the tech side comes in, is actually much more on the teams that we bring in to build the GUIs and the user interfaces and the APIs. The tech itself, as far as the crypto conditions contracts are concerned, a lot of the tech is actually finished now at the base code level. So that's where we're really lucky, and we had the option of building out the types of industries and the sectors that we wanted. So our team is effectively contracted to come in and work on the specific projects that we're building at that time. What we do not want is to be burdened with huge overheads and having a massive, particularly skilled marketing team in one area, and then find that for the next project that we're building, we don't actually need those people. So we're very much of the opinion of, we'd rather build strong network partnerships of people that we can bring in that are specific to those particular projects for the 200 days that we're with those people. Then we bring the core team back. So think of us like the spider's body, and all the contractors as the legs. But if there's one leg that's making a lot of money and it's very profitable, we'll replicate that and build it ourselves and bring it in-house for sure.
Right, it makes a lot of sense. Now, this is a tough one, and you know this space well. Now, there are other models where we've seen accelerators and incubators work side by side with projects like Komodo, for example, not Komodo itself, and they haven't needed to tokenize. They've worked quite synergistically, quite successfully, and built up the whole ecosystem of that platform beside them. Now, why didn't Komodo just do that? Why didn't they have like a whole incubator beside them and really bolster and build their own ecosystem? Because it didn't actually happen.
No, well, the thing with it is, this has been discussed a lot as well. The thing with Komodo is it's kind of like, as I say, I keep referring back to Linux, but Komodo is an end-to-end platform, and it's extremely, extremely techy, and it's all written in C and C++. And don't forget, there's a lot of guys that come along these days and they're doing JavaScript, and they're doing
or Go.
Yeah, exactly. And now you've got Python and Rust and all these different programs coming in. But the thing is that we've written effectively a language agnostic program, and everything at the base level is done. So the thing is that because there wasn't a lot of manuals written and there wasn't a lot of developer content written, that unless you were extremely techy, you couldn't come along and just build something out. You'd be there like, excuse me, who do I ask for help with this? So the last year, Komodo have done an amazing job of building out great developer manuals and guidelines and all the rest of it. So now we're starting to see the opportunity for people like us as a Red Fox Labs to come along and say, great, the materials are there, the content's there, I can bring people in and they can pick this up and they can run with it. Whereas previously it would have been everyone knocking on the same 4 people's door saying, excuse me, Komodo, can you please help us build this out? So the honest truth is that it was never delivered to from the core development level to the actual build out level. You had to be really, really techy. So other projects have been really good at making it really easy to click onto one feature or component. Komodo had just said, stuff it, let's build the end-to-end platform.
Right.
Now they're working on the mobile DEX and the 60-second chain creation, and build your own chain coin, put it on your own mobile DEX, and a grandmother can do it. But that's coming now. But it's taken 4.5, 5 years of development.
I see. So essentially, you know, they are the nerd element of this whole outfit.
Yeah.
You are the entrepreneur, and together
Yes.
you're the force, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, the utility, again, one of the things that was proposed in your recent interview with Nuggets was that utility tokens by design are very strong right now. There's a strong argument that they're not dead. Obviously, ICOs have emerged as the new IEO, but fundamentally underneath all of that narrative is the UT, the utility token. Now, are you confident that this is still an existent model that's going to be relevant in business, be applicable, be purchasable through a fiat gateway system, be accepted and endorsed? Because if this isn't going to work, then the whole system won't work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that for the foreseeable future, it looks like it definitely will. As far as whether or not Red Fox token will have fiat gateways and all the rest of it, we've already got partners in place to be able to do that. So that's definitely going to happen for us. But your question is a good question. And the thing is that, yes, there's a strong utility case for people that actually have something to purchase within the ecosystem and within the platform. But if you've got so many in silos and so many, do you need all the coins and all the tokens? And only time will tell. I would assume that there would be some sort of amalgamation, and I'm assuming that there will be companies or projects that swallow other projects and amalgamate with other projects for sure. That's definitely going to happen. It happens in every tech movement. But for the foreseeable future, I think there is still a strong argument case for utility tokens.
Right. And what's good to hear when you talk about the enveloping of some to others, you are in every sense that macro singular, from the outset, that singular token that's really designed to be one in which, you know, like when we talk about clustering, we talk about parallel scaling. This is the same analogy, because all of these clusters, all of these nodes can emerge as representatives of side chains, but there's still that one singular token that integrates into them all. And so you're that seed that's planted to build out this ecosystem alone. And that's why it's interesting to me, because normally your token economic model is less complicated in the sense that it's a one project, one coin. But now, so in that respect, have you also built out a very clear token economic paper so people can go and read through it? Or is that in the roadmap?
Yeah, actually it's in the roadmap, but the thing is that you can actually have a look at how it works. Currently, we've got some online materials if you go onto our website as well that will show you how the tokenomics work and how it all gets distributed and all the rest of it. But as far as how the ecosystem will evolve, we do have a very clear idea of what we think will happen. But what we also know is that once we start building out these companies and the technology movement, you've seen how fast things have moved in the last 6 months or a year. We can tell you how we can project them for a year based on today's technology. 1 year from now, that could morph and evolve into something completely different. But
Right.
it's very clear at the moment how this would actually operate and how it would work. So yes,
Right.
we can definitely share that.
Makes sense. Now, Benny, I want to talk to you about Red Hat for a moment, because that's the analogy you've used. Now, yes, blockchain's innovative, but is it fair also to say that technically, even with the blockchain integrated, that something like a decentralized Red Hat could evolve without a token? And I want to ask you that also in the context of, is that even reason enough not to have a token, or to have a token rather, simply because some say, well, you don't need it?
Yeah, well, when I first got into blockchain, I used to ask the question of, what if I just want to transmit data? So what if I want to keep dental records or medical records on file? Why do I need a coin? Why does everyone have all these coins? And then you've got the one side that will talk about, okay, it's the people want to make money, and it's the gold prospector and all the rest of it. But ultimately, you have to reward people for running these nodes, and you have to reward people for actually completing these transactions. So it's a form of reward. So I think ultimately there has to be that and I know it's not monetary, but there has to be that element of value for actually completing that task, for doing that work. Exactly. So I think ultimately that's going to stay for some period of time, or until something better comes along. But I think if people like myself, when I first got involved, and other people started saying, why can't you just transfer the data and not need all of that? You've seen projects that are trying to come along to solve that problem. So I think there will come a time and a day where 100%, absolutely, it becomes the norm. But for now, people still want to be rewarded. They still want to receive tokens, or they still want to receive some form of payment for actually spending the money that it's required to set up the technology to facilitate those transactions.
Right. And also it begs the question too, when someone presents you with the argument and saying you don't need it, well, I often say in response and say, well, why not though? Because saying you don't need something doesn't actually clearly articulate why you shouldn't use your token. You need to have a clear plan, and you're clearly putting that forward as the services that are offered through providing one step beyond, and that is that incentivization model. Have you also, considered in the future some sort of dual token system? Because you've talked about equity, and I'm alluding more to STOs, because I know you're not a huge fan of them, but certainly there are some where I'm hearing now where they're doing equity, STO, and they're doing the IEO.
Actually, to be honest, it wasn't until I started looking into this whole thing that I didn't even understand that there was really like 4 different types of STOs, and I didn't understand that you could do an STO for future profit without giving away any equity, and you could do it for part of dividends, and you can do it for actual equity share. And I started saying, hang on, this is like, do people that are buying into STOs actually know which one that they're getting into? And people were saying, well, no one really knows yet, because they're only just sort of starting, and then there's nowhere you can really trade them yet. There's only a couple of exchanges where you can actually trade them. So I think, to be honest, we're going to be traditional. We're going to go for the earmarked IPO or trade sale and try and do it that way. But ultimately, as STOs evolve, there could well be an opportunity for us to be able to do the STO exits as well. But
I see. So it needs maturing before you can make a clear decision, because right now there's some of these are just baseless as well, in terms of they're not the kind of ownership and dividend models that people think, like you said.
I don't mean to sound indecisive, but to be honest, I don't think anybody understands how this is going to evolve. So realistically, I'd rather just say, look, we're going to look for a traditional exit. And if something better comes along in the meantime, then of course we'll consider it and jump on that. But it's also going to be up to our partners, the people that we put in place to run the companies for us. They're going to want to have a say in, because even though we own the majority of the equity, we hand over the full operational control and the decision making to them. We give them most of the voting rights. So we want them to be able to dictate as well how they want to exit and what it looks like, and whether they want to buy us out or whatever. So we're open to a lot of different models as far as that's concerned, as far as exit's concerned.
Got it. Now, with compliance and regulation, again, there's complexities because of that international scenario. Now, where are you registered, Benny, in terms of the whole company itself? And have you addressed all of the compliance issues as you build?
My God, it's like a landmine. Oh gosh,
yeah.
We started with the BVI. We're now going through the process of the Singapore Corp as well. Effectively, we have to have holding companies as well because we're going to own equity in multiple companies that we build out. And then we also have to take the traditional stance of owning the equity of a company that's owned by local people in the countries that we operate in, because some of these countries you can't own businesses as a foreigner. So we've got, so that the traditional model will look like BVI and Singapore Corp.
Okay.
And then the BVI legal system is very similar to the US legal system. And then the Singapore incorporation and setup allows us to do more centralized business here in Southeast Asia and banking and all the rest of it. So predominantly, for example, if we were operating in a company like Vietnam, we'd be paying out money and wages and all the rest of it. But traditionally, our earnings and our money would be coming from Singapore, not generating through Vietnam itself. And if we're actually building these companies out, the onus is on the people that we're employing and building to take responsibility and to do that for obvious reasons, but they're the ones who are going to go through the registration process and the licensing, and we're going to help them with it all. But it's no point us being the licensees of the companies that they run, so we're going to help them hold their hands through that process. But we've spent more money than I would have ever liked to have spent in a lifetime on legal, and I'm sure that's going to be set to continue.
Right, and that's the big question too. Do you have enough runway with the plans, with the equity that you're raising, and also the IPO? Are you going to set forth a reasonable plan for the next few years, at the very least?
Yeah, we could have gone two ways. We could have raised much more than we needed and done it a bit slower and more steady and all the rest of it. But it's not the right market conditions to do that, and it's not good to overvalue something. So we've got enough to build. To be honest, we've got enough to build out the first two projects, and then what we've got is we've got a strong network of partners who can come along and invest in those companies that we're building underneath of us. So each of those companies that build out, say for example, it costs us $1 million to build out each company. It's not enough for them to be able to then do rapid market growth and expansion and scale up at rapid rates. They're going to need investors. So we're already thinking about and pitching these models to VCs before we actually build them, because there's no point building out a product that no one wants to invest in and no one wants.
Right.
So we've got a number of ways that we can do that, but predominantly these guys are going to be funded by traditional VCs and the traditional equity models, because they're going to have freemium models and users and paying customers. So it's not going to be hard. And being local people running those companies, it's there's a lot of it's quite easy to get funding in this region.
Right, it makes a lot of sense. And I was going to ask you the question of competitors, but really it's kind of waste of time, because the space is so nascent. You've got the clear first market move in the region. Yep. And whether or not they even do so in a non-untokenized environment, you're still going to have a huge market opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's the only reason, to be honest, the only reason that we'll fail will be on us. We don't need a massive amount of money, because realistically, you think about a lot of these companies that are even unicorns here, they started with not a lot of money. They build it up with hard sweat, sweat and tears and hard work and labour. We're a bit luckier because we've got a little bit of, we'll have a little bit of a cushion. We've got really good contacts in place already, and we've got really good tech behind us, so we can sort of, we've got a big head start, and we should be able to accelerate. That's why we can do it in 200 days. But realistically, the only reason that we would fail, and why would we move to this country, get a 6-year lease on a building, deck it out, furnish it, go through the rigmarole and the headaches of the incorporation, licensing and setup, unless we thought it was a pretty good chance of succeeding? So we talked to a lot of big VCs, and we talked to the SoftBanks and all the rest of it of the world, and said, what do you think of the idea, and is it worth investing in later? And we wouldn't have done that unless we thought it was possible to do. So I think that honestly, the only reason we'd fail is us.
Right. Now, from an economic standpoint, from the more mathematical one, you would have had engineers really assess the viability of this token. Now, thinking from a retail investor's perspective, is there any way, Benny, that you can address their one concern? And that would be, it's fine to have equity because clearly there's going to be built-in ownership and dividends. As your economy grows, as this builds out, and let's say you get beyond the first two startups that you're going to definitely invest and create, how can we start to ensure that this utility token is going to reflect the growth, literally by its price?
Yeah, well, again, we have to be very careful what we...
You really do, because
Otherwise,
I'm
you're
not
in
trying.
security.
Yeah, but I mean, we have to be real about this too, because
Yeah, of course.
the scarcity model of a utility token should reflect the growth of your ecosystem, and viably so as a utility.
Yeah, so I think that as we build out more and more companies, obviously it gets more utilized. And I think the thing is that we're building out mass scale, fast expansion, highly scalable companies that have a large number of users, which means you're processing extremely high numbers of transactions. So that in itself is one thing. But
what about circulating supply?
Yeah, so the circulating supply at the maximum it can ever be is 1 billion tokens at absolute maximum. So, so we know that, you know, you go back 3 years ago, people were saying you got 1 billion tokens. What's wrong with you? You should have 21 million, same as Bitcoin, because it's 8 decimal places. But now times have changed now, and I remember having a conversation with Charles Hoskinson, and I said, "You're creating tokens with like 40 billion. What's wrong with you?" And he said, "Anyone who talks about it in the scale of the number of coins is an idiot. It's based on the value." So ultimately speaking, we think 1 billion's enough with the 8 decimal places, obviously. But we definitely believe that if you take into consideration the building of the companies and you look at the subscription-based model, where you're talking about a huge number of potential contractors and subcontractors in the ecosystem, you're talking about a number of varied use cases for the actual token. Now, if one of those avenues shut down, there's multiple other avenues that are still utilizing and picking that up.
So, and it's important to recognize too, from my understanding, that those different use cases and those different scenarios would actually take this out of the circulating supply. So once again, it increases the scarcity.
Yeah, and the other thing that people don't really know or talk about, and this is testament to my guys as well, is that we should be yelling and shouting from the rooftop, because people are saying 5% of the token supply is available in the public sale. 28% of the supply is airdrop between months 12 and 21. So every single month, the people that hold the tokens or the coins are actually going to be getting 28% of the supply given to them. So people say, you know, the tokenomics of these new IEOs and stuff are a bit skew-if, and it's the retail investor that gets screwed and all the rest of it. Massive amount of those tokens are actually given to people along the way as well. So,
so what are you doing? But Benny, what are you doing? Like, that's an exciting thing, because you're giving gifts to those in the retail sector. But what are you doing to also combat the increasing supply as they start to be dropped into the ecosystem to balance?
So that's where, when we do get a large chunk of the rest of the coin. So we've got two things. 10% of the tokens go to Komodo. Now, people have said, why do they go to Komodo? Those guys are building out the tech that we're using. We need them to bring on more developers and bring in more people to bring out tech that we actually need. And the good thing is that we have a bit of a chance to, it's not technical debt, it's actually like build out, make and create amazing stuff. But the other thing that we're doing is we're building out that ecosystem that we talked about as far as the subscription-based support Red Hat model, which is not cheap, it's not easy to do. And where we have to make sure that there is value is if they're the tokens that are coming into supply that are going to be paying for that. If we haven't built what we've said we're going to build, we're not going to have enough money to be able to build that out.
Right.
So it's a pretty clear thing for us. We pretty much say we've done what we said we're going to do. People are on board. Big players have come in. Equity money's come in, and we're able to build this out. And that money drops into place, and we build out the Red Hat system. Or we completely cocked up, we weren't able to deliver what we said we were going to do. The token's not worth anything, and it's not even worth talking about the Red Hat.
Right, clear. So basically what you're doing is you're almost renting out the value of Komodo, but because of this mutually beneficial agreement you have, you're rewarding them with and affording them with a part of the stake in the, is it fair to say, in the company or in the revenue?
No, it's more so if we're doing the right things and we're being successful for having built out on Komodo's tech, it's almost like we're giving something back to them, and we're saying, keep going, keep building, extend, go faster, go stronger, build out.
But the point is they get something out of this as a reciprocal agreement, because they wouldn't give you the tech if they didn't have something, and you have a very unique position because of your experience. So essentially, you're not specifically a blockchain per se, but you're using that as the core fundamental bedrock blockchain to build out Red Fox Labs to become something that's an enterprise magnet in the blockchain business domain.
And think about this. If you're relying just on me to build something, I could get it wrong. Now, the thing is, Komodo now have a revenue stream coming in that says, this is for the great work that's underpinning the businesses that are being built. They have an incentive to make sure that the businesses that we're putting out there are built on amazing tech, because the better those businesses are, the more money they've got coming in as part of this funding to them. So the thing is, we've set up multiple mitigation and risk points to try and say, hey, we're all involved, we're all in this together. The more we work together, the better everyone benefits together. So this is we've put in multiple fail-safe points, and we haven't made it so that there's just one weak link in the chain that makes everything fall apart. We've actually got this so that everybody's incentivized to be able to build this out. So we thought about this for nearly a year. This hasn't just come from us scribbling down on the back of a napkin.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that was the criticism I did have, is that some had argued and said, look, this has just happened too quickly. You know, it sounds like a cash grab for Komodo to quickly just fluff something up and get out there. But you're saying, you know, it's been a year in the making.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a look at the domain registration, it's nearly a year. The chain for Red Fox Coin has been around for nearly a year. We've started talking about this for like over a year ago. And then it's sort of, it's morphed and it's developed and all the rest of it. And make no bones about it, Komodo is Komodo, and Red Fox Labs is Red Fox Labs. It's not Komodo Labs. This is a completely distinct and separate. One can be successful without the other, and one can fail without the other. Make no bones about it.
Well, let's be real. If, let's say, for example, Komodo failed, you know, tomorrow, then surely you could still go and outsource some sort of open protocol.
I don't want to give away too much, but the model that we have is actually franchisable. The model, the IP that we have, and the funnel system we have could potentially click onto anything.
Well, Benny, that's why you said agnostic, because you're already telling us, without telling us, that you're looking at other options as well. So that's going to unfold, and we're going to find out more. Now, mate, to finish off, I want to know one more thing. What's in the pipeline? With business, you know, there's two clear projects you're thinking of, and they are with those popular verticals. But what can we expect to unfold in the next, you know, few months without giving away things you simply can't because of NDA?
We've got people waiting in the wings for which project we build to who comes on. But I think what's going to happen is people are going to sort of say, hang on, this project has popped up out of nowhere, and hang on, that's a really big partner or player that's involved in this. Like, how did they do that? Or have they spent all the token money just to try and get that partner in? No, we've been having meetings for the last year and talking to people and working out how we can work and partner. You're going to see running. And you'll see things moving very fast, because technically speaking, we're under the gun as well. Because if we want this big, huge scale VC investments, we have to show them that we've got 2 companies underway. And if we say it's 200 days per company, after 400 days, they're going to start saying, how close is the second company away from being finished? So we've said to everybody, please give us a 20-day grace period just to choose the product, make sure that we've got all the funds in and everything sorted out. Give us 20 days to sort of get the team together and ready, and then the 100 go to market, then 100, and then it's just going to go like clockwork. So you're going to see it run, and you're going to think, crap, they've just built this out of nowhere. It's sprung up out of, we're already speaking to GUI design teams, we're already speaking to developers, we're already speaking to, and we're giving a few clues away because we've brought on advisors like Art Legger, who's a very famous video game designer. We've brought across JL, who's obviously very Yeah, and we've got more coming across. We've just brought on, you probably would have seen, we just brought on a mechatronics and robotics engineer. Mm-hmm. We've been very, very, if you look for clues, there is breadcrumbs everywhere.
Okay, well, Benny, we'll be looking, obviously, on the blockchain for these kinds of clues. And clearly, you're building out this bespoke hub model that's going to be arguably something that's going to be really reconceptualizing how business can be done in Southeast Asia first. What you've taught us today, fundamentally, is that you're trying to do a new model, a tokenized hub, essentially, a tokenized blockchain factory. Really, that's what it is. And you're doing that in a way that is bespoke because there's a one token model for the whole ecosystem. So essentially, if we're talking about all the different cogs in the engine, these cogs represent those side chains, and you're building the engine. The fuel is your token. Really exciting to see that you're trying to do something new. You've been there for a long time in that region because of Komodo, and now you're trying to capitalize on that knowledge, that experience, and that connection to build something new. So, mate, I wish you all the very best in the future. No FOMO from me, because I certainly was not an investor, and I'm not paid for this interview, but I am certainly one who is a proponent for doing something innovative. I wish you all the very best, mate. You're leading out something that a lot of people talk about but don't do.
And the thing is, I think, thank you to your show, and it's been a way overdue. We haven't sat down and had a talk, and it's good. It's good how you grill projects, and it's good how you're very honest and clean, and I really, really like that. And I hope that there's a few people out there, and I'm sure there will be, that kind of say, I want to be involved in something like this. And we've got a couple of really aspirational people, and people that have sort of thought, I have to be a part of this. And we've got people that are actually leaving their home countries and flying to Vietnam to join us on this mission. So if anyone's watching that thinks this is something I'd love to be a part of, don't hesitate to get into contact with us, because if you are extremely passionate and you're motivated to make a difference and help us do this, then we're prepared to look at you regardless of your skill set. We'll try and see where we can fit you in.
Awesome, mate. Well, you've heard it from Benny. They're hiring, they're not firing, they're looking at trying to grow this ecosystem. And if you're passionate about changing the game on blockchain, here's your chance. The description and all the links are below if you'd like to know more, and get in touch with Benny directly. He is the boss, the blockchain boss for this Red Fox Labs initiative. Once again, mate, thank you very much for your time. Let's catch up again after this IEO, after Coin Benny and Benny get together and work this out and see how it unfolds. It's exciting. It's very soon. Good luck with that, mate. And we'll talk, post IEO release.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.